Hello, this is Catherine Parker, and I will be presenting an explanation and tutorial on the Santa Cruz Valley Curriculum Calendar document. There are two documents that the district is requiring of teachers, the Curriculum Calendar and the Instructional Guide. In simple terms, the calendar tells what is taught and when. The Instructional Guide addresses how the content is taught. This presentation will focus on the calendar. The Curriculum Department will be uploading the calendars to the district website for teachers and the community to view. It is important that the documents are consistent in appearance and purpose. I will not be able to answer every possible question in this presentation, but I hope to provide information about the expectations of the calendar to all teachers. Marie Cassidy and I are available to answer any further questions or formatting concerns you may have. Here is the template for the curriculum calendar. The template is a Word document with 4 tables, one for each quarter. As I scroll down, you can see a new table for quarter 2 and for quarter 3 and so on. Please be sure that your calendar document has all 4 quarters in one document. Some people have submitted calendars with 1 quarter per document, and these need to be combined into a single document. You can access the header by double-clicking in the header area. It will darken and the body of the document will gray out. You need to enter the grade level and content area for your course, and on the lower left side of the header, enter the textbook, publisher, and edition year. To get back to the body of the document, just bring your cursor down and double-click in the body area. The first table is for the first quarter. If your content is taught in one semester, such as with middle school science and social studies, you can write in multiple quarters. You could say quarters 1 and 3 in the first table, and then quarters 2 and 4 in the second table. But most classes will have 4 tables with 1 table per quarter. If you need to delete a table, when your cursor is in the table, you can see a little blue box in the top left corner, and if you click on that, you can hit the delete key and it will disappear. I'm going to undo that, but that's how you can get rid of additional tables if you do not need them. Below this are the 9 weeks of the quarter, and these cells can be merged to show the amount of time in a given unit. I'm going to demonstrate for you how to merge cells. Suppose that the first unit lasts 3 weeks. You would highlight those 3 weeks and right-click, and you can merge those cells into one cell. Then you can begin typing. If you decide that you want to change how they are merged and you want to instead do 4 weeks, you can again right-click and split the cells, and I'm going to put them back to the original 3 columns, and it goes back to how it was before, and then you can instead merge 4 cells or however many that need to be for your unit. Remember that the unit should be a standards-based unit of instruction. You can include a brief description of the concepts and ideas covered in the unit, especially if the content is not necessarily evident in the title of the unit. However, details such as vocabulary, specific page numbers, and activities actually belong in the instructional guide. Remember that the purpose of this document is to show what is taught and where. Details about instruction will occur in the instructional guide. The next section is the benchmark standards. These are the most important content standards for the quarter. The standards should have both the coding and the wording of the standard. If your content area participates in Galileo benchmark testing, these would be the standards that are submitted to ATI to create a benchmark assessment. You have some options on how to format this section of the calendar. You may list all of the standards in the order taught or in chronological order from the standard document, but you will need to identify by coding which standards belong to each unit. It's easiest to show an example of a calendar that has already been completed. I'll show you a few different styles that have been submitted. This is a 7th grade math calendar. There are 2 units, one lasting 4 weeks and another lasting 5 weeks. And the benchmark standards are listed in the order that they are in the Common Core Standards document. This is the NS domain, and they're put in chronological order from 1 through 3. However, the teacher has also listed which standards are addressed in the first unit and also which standards are addressed in the second unit. So you can see the standards by coding where they belong, and look below in the benchmark standards section to see the wording that goes with the coding. Another example is the Cambridge World History Calendar. Let me enlarge this. And this is divided into 3 units with an introduction unit for building background. There are specific standards that apply to the particular units. For example, these standards 1 through 6 are listed for the introduction unit, and then specific standards for unit 1 and 2 and 3. Then below, this teacher has listed other benchmark standards that are not associated with any particular unit, but for this particular quarter. And this is just another way to show your units and the standards. The point is, there's more than one way to show your benchmark standards. There's flexibility on format as long as it is evident which standards are taught in which units and that the coding and wording are both present. The next section is supporting and transition standards, and this is where it gets difficult to create a generic template for all subjects, which is why I'm presenting this tutorial. Only math and ELA will possibly have transition standards. This section is for those old standards that are not in Common Core, but may still be on the Ames test. This is actually more likely in math than in ELA. There are very few of the old ELA standards that are not somehow included or embedded within the Common Core standards. However, there are a handful of 2008 math standards with a high blueprint percentage, so that teachers still need to pay attention to these standards until the new PARCC assessment arrives. And this would be the place for those standards. I have the 7th grade math calendar open, and you can see here that this is the first quarter table. It does flow onto a second page. So we have the benchmark standards and then supporting standards. These supporting standards are still Common Core, but they are not benchmark standards, which means they would not show up on the Galileo test. But they are important to support those benchmark standards and therefore are included in the calendar. Below that are the transition standards, and these are the old coding. These are old standards, but they are still high blueprint and may still show up on the Ames test, and the teachers have decided that this is the best quarter for these to be addressed. I also have a 5th grade calendar, and they have benchmark standards. They don't happen to have supporting standards, at least not for this quarter. All of the standards are going to be assessed on the benchmark test. But they also have some transition standards that until Ames goes away, they will focus on these in quarter one. These are the old standards right here. I also wanted to point out, you might have noticed that this standard has part of the wording crossed out. This is letting us know and ATI know that on this first benchmark test, they only want items dealing with the first part of the standard, and they will address the second part of the standard later on in the year. This is something that you can do if you find that only part of the standard should be tested on a Galileo test. Teachers who do not teach ELA or math may use the supporting standards section for those content standards that are secondary to the benchmarks. You may also have a separate section to show the Common Core standards that are supported by your content area curriculum. Here is the biology calendar, and they have the benchmark standards followed by supporting standards. These supporting standards are still biology, but they are secondary to the benchmark standards. And then down at the bottom, they have supporting Common Core standards. This also brings up the year-long standards. This is another optional section that you may add to your calendar. If you only have a few, you may place them directly in the quarterly table, but you might have year-long standards, enough of them to where you'd put them at the end as a separate addendum. And let me show you an example of that in the Cambridge World History. They show supporting Common Core standards underneath the benchmark, but then at the end, here are the Common Core standards that they felt would be supported by their curriculum throughout the year, and listed these at the end. And this page could be printed separately and posted on the wall next to the quarterly calendar. Finally, I would like to address text boxes. Some calendars were submitted with text boxes copied from a previous calendar. A text box will complicate future editing, and we ask that text boxes not be used on the calendar document. The reason for this is the text box does not really get copied into a cell, but rather sits on top of the cell. I have an example of a calendar with text boxes, and you can tell that there's a text box when you click on the text in a cell, but a dotted line appears around the text. This text box is not really in the document, it's just on top of the document. And it is visually unappealing with where the text boxes overlap, and we want a consistent visual appearance on the calendars. I don't want to go into much detail on the mechanics of removing text boxes from the Word documents, but there are people at your site who can assist with this, or I can meet with you to help you fix these calendars. The Curriculum Department has shared a Google Doc with you entitled 2013-14 Calendar Audit. This is where you can view the comments made by the auditors to guide your work today. We have also shared a curriculum calendar glossary with definitions of the various standard sections that might be included on the calendar. Your job now is to work with your respective teams and revise the calendars. Some content areas have a lot of work to do, and some are almost finished. When you are done working on your document, please save it with today's date at the end of the document title. See the format for the title of your calendar on the screen. Please send your documents at whatever stage of completion to the Curriculum Department email, also shown on the screen, through the calendar liaisons. The liaisons are listed on the calendar audit. Thank you for viewing this presentation. Please contact the curriculum department or your liaison if you have any questions. Have a productive day.